I shall begin the session by introducing you to the wonderful Lawrences. So I know Shamilla the best because she helps me do my job a lot better than I could do it on my own. She's one of the most organized people that I know. So with all the other people and couples that I've done these interviews with, I've probably been a bit slack in my preparedness, and I've just sent them like a WhatsApp with a bit of like, hey, this is the gist, this is the theme, do what you want to do. And Shamilla has actually been really good in that she's sent me 23 slides to let me know what she wants to talk about. And then she's like, oh, and also I want to tee Lawrence up, and also I'd like to get my children to come and share because we're talking about teenagers and my children are teenagers. Why don't I get them to share as well? So when I say that Shamilla makes me do my job better, this is an example of Shamilla doing my job better. And we were speaking about it earlier today, and she said the reason she's like, this is because it means a lot to her. Like she's really quite passionate about having a strong family life. And so that's why she puts a lot of effort into that. And you can see when you chat to her kids, you can see when Lawrence and Shamilla speak about their family and the way they go about themselves, that they have been really intentional about the way that they've built their family and have worked really hard at it. And we're really excited to hear from them. Tonight, we're talking about relationships and specifically relationships to do with teenagers. And the way it's going to work is, I believe Lawrence and Shamilla are planning to share mostly stories and experience. And so I've got some slides that are from them that I'll pop up on the screen so you can see a few different things. But yeah, a lot of what they're sharing is actually just experience from the last 16 or so years of being parents. And then also at the sort of the last half of the session, we're going to be hearing from the teenagers themselves, which will be really exciting. And they're going to share from their perspective and their side of things. And so if they start fighting, I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to kick everyone out and let them sort it out. Then we'll invite everyone back in. But yeah, I think that's how it's going to work. So yeah, Lawrence, Shamilla, the gang, did you guys maybe want to introduce yourselves? And you can kick it off whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Thanks, intro. Can everyone hear me clearly? Yep, all right. And the girls are sitting next to us, so we can't be, hopefully you don't fight. Firstly, I'd just like to just say that, by all means, it's not going to be we're not the most perfect family and everything, but I think, it's nice to have this discussion. And thanks to Pastor Carl, we thought, it'd be a good sharing for us. So Shamilla has, as you said, kind of been very passionate about it, and the whole family has got together and kind of came up with, what are the key things which we have experienced over the years. And so we just thought of, splitting the session to, 2 sessions. The first, Lash is our oldest, she's 16. So we thought, we'll just talk about the first 8 years when we were not in Australia. And then after the last 8 years when we were in Australia and we had 2 little toddlers as well. So we've got, basically, let me just, all right, so this is our family. So we've got 4 kids. I think most of you are probably aware. So we've had different kind of challenges over the years, but the first 8 years was we were back in Malaysia. We were the first the kids were the first grandchildren from both sides of the families, and so we really didn't have that much of help in a lot of things, but we sort of went through life with a lot of few big changes. Firstly, we we actually moved countries, and that kind of took a bit of it's a big challenge for us. We were in Malaysia. We were both first were full-time working and busy with work and things, and then we had to move countries, and there was kind of whatever all the experiences we just wanted to kind of put in a right. So the first few years we basically like most families with young kids, we try to offer whatever opportunities for the kids. We allowed them, with, all these extracurricular activities, gymnastics, drama, come on and stuff. And we were not too bogged down with mundane chores because, yeah, we had family parents staying with us, and also we had kind of like some helpers with us. So we were kind of like a busy family. We spent, I think, not that much time, too much time with the kids back then, but we did all the practical things. But we managed. We made sure that we kind of like made sure that we have a good church life and got involved in a life group. Both in Malaysia as well as in Hong Kong where we were, and we had a good family support back then to to have as a family, and we celebrated a lot of things together and vacations and birthdays and so forth. But there's always an element of guilt that we're not spending too much time and putting in good learnings into the kids, mainly because we've got like helpers with us who most of the time we didn't have childcare, so kids were either in school or with the helper, and we're all busy working. And then a lot of things for the kids were done, like the girls especially. They grew up probably many years, they didn't do much of their own cleaning or bathing and things like that, washing up, and so a lot of things were done for them. So I think they were a little bit pampered back then. But then again, we try to keep in touch with the Christian community where we live, both in Malaysia and Hong Kong. And then there came to a point when we decided, there's a turning point in our life to come to Australia, and we had to make certain decisions. We moved by faith, and also like Shamilla had to quit her job before we moved. So that's kind of like in a gist what our first 8 years were.
Yeah, I think the key thing is that we did wrestle with many things, and the key question we asked ourselves is that what do we want out of life? And as we wrestle with that question, I think that's where the real turning point came in terms of like, if we keep doing this, they will come, they'll grow up, and we'll miss the season. So what do you want? What do we want to do? So we actually had to make some hard decisions, hard choices. And I think at that time is when I told we decided. I told myself that if I quit my full-time job and let's just move by faith kind of thing. So from Hong Kong, then we actually moved to Australia. So we actually uprooted 3 different countries, from Malaysia, Hong Kong, and then Australia. So a lot of changes, a lot of wrestling. And then finally, yes, we arrived in Australia 8 years ago.
Yeah. So and then when we moved here, then we also had 2 toddlers with us, the boys, and it became a bit of a challenge because the girls had to grow up faster. And so a lot of things we did in the last 8 years was by faith. I think God helped us to open doors, give us insight, and obviously we made lots of mistakes, a lot of challenges with children, 2 sets of children with different ages. And yeah, we obviously didn't have much we didn't have family here except Shamila's sisters here. So we had to do a lot of things like mundane chores which we didn't used to do, because both of us were working, and I used to travel a lot overseas for work, and that took a toll on Shamilla as well. And there's still a lot of wrestling the last, especially the first 2 years that we moved. But God convinced us and convicted us that this is the right decision we made. And yeah, we I think we allowed him to help us to make some decisions, key decisions. And at the same time, the other thing we always have a challenge in our head is like coming from Asian background and the Aussie culture, what is a middle ground, and yeah, things like that. So over the years, I think we sort of kind of like try to find the balance in everything which we do. But at the end, we the key learnings which we keep asking ourselves, what kind of family do we want? Want to be? What's the big picture for us? And that helps us to make certain decisions, and also to reduce kind of internal battles between me and Shamilla. We've got different personalities, sure, and have peace and comfort. That we are with with all the challenges, we are having peace in all the decisions we make, and also of course to make intentional choices.
Hey, so in your first 8 years, you mentioned one of the things that I guess you guys were wrestling with was something that I think a lot of parents wrestle with, and that is, are we spending enough time with our kids? Like, have you settled on what you think that looks like now? And like, I'm not sure, like if that's something that you're going to touch on a bit later, by all means, let me know. But like, yeah, what I wrestle with that, and I'm stuck at home all day with them at the moment, and I still wonder, am I spending enough time with them? So yeah, where did you land?
Uh, yeah, that's a constant battle, but I think it's a lot of things is, I think in our minds as well of the parents is a guilt, right? Guilt is like, so you may spend, holidays, full time with them, but yet you feel like you didn't spend quality time. So it's a bit subjective. So I think I think for the parents to, you can spend 10 minutes like quality. I remember when Joe and Yin shared, they've got the jockey time and all, 10 minutes, that's like awesome, and we try to implement, but but so yeah, it's more about the quality, I think, and I think kids also understand. I mean, I look at the girls, I think over the years, yeah, the few, the key things which we have done over the years, little by little, has built them to be who they are. So I think it's all little building blocks, so we shouldn't feel guilty about that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I also think that one of the biggest thing is the mindset shift that we have. Just like in the last 8 years, like because we grew up in the Asian culture where you say, go study, get a job, get a career, make money, you'll be happy. And then, but actually then we wrestled with, when we came to Australia, a lot of families were very different. And so we're constantly wrestling with that. I think that was when we actually asked ourselves, well, that's the Asian thing that we built in, and then we've got the Australian culture, which is very relaxed. Not all, but more relaxed, sports and all that stuff. And then we asked ourselves, what do we want as a family? What do the Lawrences want? And I think when we came and landed at what we wanted in terms of knowing the big picture, whatever decisions that we make, the wrestle is less. There's more peace, because it's not about like we want them to be great doctors or lawyers or engineers or whatever not, but we actually want them to be what kind of person based on our big picture, more that this is what our parents told us to do, and that's what we're implementing down the line. So I think that was a great shift for us in terms of asking this question and then actually understanding the big picture. And I think we've outlined like 6 things that we want the Lawrence's family to have in our big picture kind of thing.
So before you jump into that, because I think you're about to actually go and speak about what you've mentioned a couple of times, is that question of what do we want our family to be, like what do we want from our family, which is I think where you're going next. I would say if people are interested in this mindset from Lawrence and Shamilla, Andy Stanley has a sermon on YouTube called Winning. So Andy Stanley Winning. It's a sermon, and it's really fantastic. And he talks about this idea of having a winning mentality. And that's not in terms of competition. It's in terms of knowing what your goal is, and therefore knowing if you've achieved it or not. Because he talks about how if you do not set goals with your husband and your wife or your kids or your family, you have things called not goals, which is you just have things in your mind of what you don't want to be, but you don't have any intentionality in your mind of what you actually want to be. Like you just know what you don't want to be. And I think Lawrence and Shamilla are really good at setting goals for what they want to be. Like they've actually thought about what is the win? How do we know if we've succeeded in what we're trying to do as parents, as people, as a husband and wife team? So I do highly recommend. He speaks really, really quick, but he's really enjoyable to listen to. That's Andy Stanley, and I think it's called Winning. And you can watch it on YouTube. It goes for maybe 45 minutes, and it's really, really good. And it's this mentality of what are my goals? What do I actually want to achieve? How do I know if I've won? And yeah, so it speaks into that, which is I think where you guys are about to head, is that you guys actually devised some wins for your family. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just run share a couple of things. So yeah, basically, I think the big picture, and we've broken it down to six. So love for God. I think we try to instill that for the kids since young. So we make sure that they understand that the strength and it's just not like a namesake. Believing in God, but have a personal relationship, so that they can go to God. Even as parents, we can fail them, in many ways and disappoint them, and so that they, especially as they grow up to be teenagers. Try to tell them to actually look for God and have that personal relationship and with God. And of course, we want to ensure that the family is also united. Um, Relationship with each other, siblings, and also the extended family, grandparents. We are far away from our roots. We try to instill and try to make some intentional efforts to meet back with the grandparents and also our siblings. So those are the out of the six. I just wanted to touch base on that. And the other thing is that also, each child, as I think most of your parents know, they all have their own gifts and talents. They're all unique in their own ways, and they excel in some things, they just love some things, and it becomes effortless in their own gifts and talents. And we try to identify and encourage them to make sure that they take more, just explore everything, but also we try to identify what their gifts and talents are.
Yeah.
And I think that was always, whenever Lawrence and I, we have a disagreement, or we get back into, or we're pressured back into the Asian mentality, like, oh, we need to do this or we need to do that. We ask ourselves, but why? What do we want to achieve at the end of the day? And if the achievement is, we want to make sure that they actually have a personal relationship with God, that's key. If we want to make sure that they study studies that they like based on their gifts and talents, versus we pushing it to say, because we like science or we like IT, then you do that too, and that's not going to really bring the best out of them. And I think that by having this big picture, it makes us always go back to it and understand the real, what do we want to get out of the family kind of thing. So that's why we realize that both our kids are very different, what their needs are very different. So the gifts and talents is still very key, like even choosing VCE subjects for them. I still remember Lawrence was wrestling with my older one. He's like, do science, do IT, do maths. She's like, no way, I don't like any of those subjects, So it's like, but we wrestled, and it was like many days of wrestling, and then it's like we concluded, oh, let her do what she really likes, and that when the child does what she likes, he or she will excel without any other. It's just given. And I think the other thing is also like understanding financial independence, teaching them the big picture about financial independence in terms of living within your means, understanding about delayed gratifications of saving, investing, tithing, giving, and just teaching them along the way kind of thing, because that's, at the end of the day, will actually make them know about real life, like what life's about and how do we actually go out there. It's not just about having a career, but actually at the end of the day, it's working towards financial independence, and how do you go about it.
Are you saying you're being very stingy with your kids? Are you saying that I shouldn't be relying on my parents still at age 33?
Well, I've told them that, if you guys are definitely not going to pay for your car and your way up that route. But I did say that, like, be careful, like always live within your means, invest, give, and like being an Asian mentality, like previously I would not send my daughter or to go to work at the age of 15, but last year she went out to work, because I realized that if I don't teach her to go out and explore, she's just gonna fall flat one day, and that's not gonna actually teach her the skills that she needs. So I wrestle with that, or we wrestle with that. Is she gonna be safe? How is she gonna come back, and all that stuff? But she went, and after a couple of months, she's like, it's hard work. So she learns the stuff along the way, and I was quite glad, because like I told her, this is your money, you can do whatever you want, and like she's like, all right, I'll take some and use, but I want to put it in the bank. So that's good to like see the seeds growing, like in terms of like how to use money and be a good a steward in terms of your money.
Yeah.
And I think the other big picture that's in our brain, or always we encourage, is like what God has blessed us. And if you know our backgrounds, both of us actually come from very very hard background where we basically didn't have anything in our banks, right? So we grew up actually learning it the hard way. And we said that if God has blessed us, we always should bless others in terms of our time or our money or resources, and go out and actually serve. So they're having that serving community from a young age, and to see them actually go like together, do stuff like Love Loud, or with school we have live below the line, or so they take up things like that to actually see and play their role, kind of thing. And we do it so that they actually then replicate what we do, not all the time, but that's always at the back of our head. And and I'm a big fan of I'm trying to be getting the whole family to be a big fan of healthy living, because that's also like, mentally to be active, positive thinking, eat right, exercise. So sometimes you'll hear them talking to me like, let's go do some clothing exercise together or something like that. So
yes. Shamilla is by far the fittest person in the church staff by a long shot. Like everyone else is just battling for a distant second. Shamilla is by far and away the fittest and healthiest of the whole lot. I tell you what.
I'm still getting Lawrence to carry weight, but he hasn't gone there yet.
I'm naturally fit. So.
I tell you what you raised is a really good point in getting your kids to do jobs when they're young. I know lots of families don't like having their kids do work, especially around like exam time and all that, and you guys can figure all that out. But getting people to do jobs when they're young, I think, is very healthy, because it makes you realize when you're older to really appreciate the good jobs that come your way, because you don't get a lot of good jobs when you're young. One of the jobs that I did was literally shoveling poo into bags in a tip. So I was working in a garbage tip, and within the garbage tip, I was shoveling poo into bags. I did that for a few weeks. So that was really fun. And so when an office job comes my way, I tell you what, beauty. It's a good learning experience. You guys would have had a lot of, do you mind if I just ask the young women? You guys have seen the 6 things that your family sort of prioritizes. I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but are there ones among that 6 that really stand out to you as important to you? Because I know that, they're saying everyone has different personalities and whatever.
So one of the big things was gifts and talents for me personally, because as I had to go choose some subjects, as my mom said before, like they gave me, like eventually after a lot of like discussing, they eventually gave me my freedom to choose like what I personally wanted in my future. And so gifts and talents was a big thing growing up, because they always would open like opportunities. Even when I was growing up, they offered gymnastics to me, they did singing classes, they did drama classes, they did tennis. And so I managed to find what I liked and what I disliked, and that was really important to me personally.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's like the same for me, gifts and talent, except for me, it's more like, I think it's really important that the parents know that all their kids are like different, and there's no like general like stereotype for all teenagers. So by like picking like extracurricular activities or like different things like that for each kid, it makes it the teenager feel more supported, like knowing that there's something that's specifically for them and not just like the whole family. So
Thank you, that's really good to hear. We're gonna move into a bit where at the moment everything sounds really good. It sounds like Lawrence and Shamilla have got it nailed, and everything has worked out perfectly at the moment. That's what it sounds like. And I think we're going to move into a section where we might realize that some things work and some things didn't. It's all good if no one has any questions. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't pass.
Sorry, Kyle. I just have a quick question.
Yeah, please.
I really love seeing your 6 goals, Shamilla and Lawrence. I think it's really nice, and I just like to get your thoughts on how do you reinforce that six goals with the girls, like with the girls and boys? How do you make sure they remember it and they follow through? And it's a lot of communications you need to have, and a lot of time you have to invest in trying to make sure they understand it and they they're following through, maybe not on a daily basis, but it's on the back of their mind, and it's something they're processing through. How do you make sure they're doing it?
That's a good question.
I have an answer to this. My mom printed out this big poster paper and stuck it on our window in front of our kitchen. So every time we walk into the dining room, we can literally see the 6 goals in our family, and that's the only thing we read when we eat dinner. And so that's always in the back of our head because it's just there all the time.
All right,
that's good.
That's good, Lashana.
Well, yeah, if no one else has any questions, there will be also time later on to ask some more questions, so don't feel like you've missed an opportunity. But yeah, Lawrence, Shamilla, did you want to continue on with how things went, I guess?
I think just a piece of paper on the dining room will not do the trick, trust me. If so, a lot of things will be quick to fix. But I think I will share with you the next slide. The next couple of slides is actually what we've been intentionally doing over the last 8 years. It wasn't like day one, this is the things we did, but we learned and intentionally we were doing. It's a lot of work sometimes, a lot of giving up. It can be very tiring. But I think it's worth it if we know that, for us, family is important, right? And because it's important, it's not our careers, it's not our jobs. It's great, it gives us the money, but family is important, and that's why we invest in it. Because to be really honest, after 10 years, 12 years, we look back, they'll all be gone out of this nest. And that time, it's just too late to sit down and then want to build a relationship. There's bye mom, bye dad. And yeah, so I think we actually asked that question, when we are in our 50s, in our 60s, every 10 years, I was like, what would life look like? And when you look back and see, oh, I actually better do something now rather than waiting after when I'm reaching 50s or 60s or 70s when it's too late, because you only get one chance at life in that sense, in terms of the age. So I think there's no magic formula. The first thing is living by example. Monkey see, monkey do. I always believe in that. If they don't see it in you, that's what will happen. If you shout at them, if you eat junk, if we don't make time for God, then that's what will happen. They will do exactly the same. So instead of keep saying sometimes why they're not like that, it's because they're actually looking at us. They're actually emulating us in terms of all our actions. They're watching, they're observing our body language in terms of, do we cry when we're sad? Do we apologize? Do we really listen to them? Are we mostly on our devices? We keep telling them to be off devices all the time. We are on devices, So I think living by example is truly what we believe. I remember once, Lawrence always helps to my older one, actually all my kids, take your water bottle, go and have make sure you carry your water bottle. And then one day my daughter turned around and said, you don't carry a water bottle, Dad. I'm like, that's a good point, Lawrence. I think you should start carrying a water bottle, So I think, so because they are observing, and I think this week itself, my younger boy came up to me and said, you are not speaking kindly. Your words are very rude. And I'm like, yes, I keep telling you to be kind, but I'm not doing it. So yeah, so I think the key is living it. You have that, and the daily changing of yourself. I also think teenagers, we need to provide some kind of structure, not prescription, but more structure. I always tell them, you being a student, it's a season, right? The season will go away. You then go into young adults, and then you become adults and so forth. So in this season, use your time wisely. And I give them guides about what that time would look like. For example, I always help, make sure you do time with God. It doesn't need to be sitting down 20 minutes from now. It can be on the bus when you're walking. Talk to God, build that relationship with Him. Because I said, we can be there, but not all the time. The people come, friends come, but God will always be there for you. So we really, really emphasize time with God is very important, and that He is real, and He actually will listen and provide you direction. So when we talk about providing structure, just studying, I said, guys, don't muck around in school. If you actually give your 100% in school, when you come back, you don't really need to study anymore. So when it's study time, study, don't muck around, because it's your season to be a student. And then we always encourage them to go to youth on Friday, attend some Christian Christian camps from on a yearly basis if they can. Have time for their passion and love. It's okay to go out and do things that they like. We try to do family prayer from time to time, not every day. We're not successful, but we do time to time. So yeah, just having some kind of guide. I always help in the morning to them. Have you put your bed? Have you done the bathroom? Have you done the dishes? So that, it's a daily thing of like, this is structure. This is what you need to do as part of the family kind of thing. So I think that's the second thing that actually, there's a lot of nagging sometimes, a lot of reminding, but it is needed because that's how generally it gets to them, and they actually, sometimes a lot of crying too. I just sit down and break. I say, I can't do the dishes anymore. I can't do this anymore. And like, yeah, okay. And then they really realize that that's what, and you can see the seeds actually when suddenly, I think last year when I went away for 5 days, my second daughter told my first daughter, you sound like mommy. You ask her to do dishes and clean up and do everything else. So it's realized it's an ingrained value that suddenly becomes alive in them. So nothing goes like, sometimes we think it's not working, but trust me, the kids are actually learning as we continue to nurture them kind of thing in this space.
Yeah.
And I also think that another thing is actually like what Lash shared and Liv shared just now, is exploring their interests and supporting their interests, not ours. So sometimes their interests can be very wild, things that we've never done before, and like giving us the opportunity to like allow them to do it. So I still remember one day she said, Mom, I want to do a YouTube video. I want to do a tie-dye business. I'm like, okay. But so, supporting them, giving them to explore it, and actually letting them excel in it. Like they love their netball. They play like 4 times a week or 5 times a week, and they just enjoy it. And yeah, so different child has different interests. Sometimes it can be tiring because we've got 4 kids, but I think that's worth it, even though it's tiring. So we loved the COVID period because it gave us a bit of downtime, or else we'll be actually shuttling them to like all the different things that they do. So I think that's key in the third thing in terms of what worked well for them.
Hey Shamilla, I'm really liking what you're sharing, but I also just want to make sure that we don't chew up too much time for the girls to share a bit later. But I do just want to highlight one thing that you said, and I probably will talk to you about it later, was the difference between structure and restriction. I really liked that sort of dichotomy, that mentality of like, giving them a platform or a structure to make their own decisions as opposed to taking away decisions and forcing them down a sort of certain path. I think that's really important. I might check on the next slide and maybe if you can pick 1 or 2 things that stand out to you guys the most.
Okay. I think that one thing I wanted to pick up from here would be actually finding common interests with them. Earlier was supporting their interests, but I think finding common interests, so things like we do like together, so we like to watch The Voice together or Survivor, and actually journey in that space. Or actually finding out their love language. I love to hug. They don't like to hug. So don't pour that love language on them because you get a lot of conflict. I think the other thing that really helped us was mentors. Like last year, we started having like a youth leader mentor, one of my older kids, just to be with her, spend time with her, and like do time with God. And that really brought the different perspective out of her. And she started writing songs because the youth leader was into writing songs and singing. So it's just awesome to see that another leader actually instilling into my daughter's life, for example. And ourselves also having a mentor, like our life groups. We've got families who've got older kids, journeying with them. Like we've got here Tutin and Suken, who've always helped us, give us answers to things that we always get stuck on. So be ourselves, having mentors and learning so that we know what's coming next, rather than trying to play catch up all the time kind of thing. So I think that was some of the things that really worked well kind of thing from us. I think one other area that really, sometimes they don't like to do certain things, like being responsible to do like dishes or gardening or whatever. And I think Lawrence plays a lot of role in that. Like, he's like, let's do it together. And I think somehow or other that instills the spirit of responsibility and serving in them. And we talked about like work and babysitting their brothers and so forth. So I think, so those are some of the things that really worked well for us.
That's cool. Sorry, I'm taking notes while you're writing. So No, that's really good.
Maybe I would like to just ask Lash to share if there's anything from the 2 slides. I don't know whether anything that stands out for her or for Liv that stands out for them. I may think it's working well, but I don't know about them. But I will hear from them in a while time. But I thought I'll just ask them and see.
We might jump ahead to, I guess, sort of. You had a section where you sort of mentioned some of the challenges, I guess, that came up with that as well. And I thought that might be worth just touching on before you sort of summarized how things are going. You guys finding this helpful and interesting? I know I'm enjoying it, taking a whole lot of notes. So thank you so much for what you're sharing so far. It's quite evident that you guys care quite deeply about being good parents, which is really lovely to see. But we might jump ahead to this screen. If you just wanted to share a little bit about this, because I think this is some of your challenges, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think this is something which probably I'm prone to as well. I mean, especially the first one, overreacting. I just realized that we as parents have to understand that sometimes we just overreact for small items, small things. So there's so we obviously it happens when you're tired, exhausted after a long day. So yeah, that's something which I think as they grow older, teenagers, we should try to avoid. And also, being consistent. Sometimes, again, they're all now little adults, or actually they're adults. They are nearly adults. So we have to be consistent in our, how we engage with them. They're not no more little children, little, toddlers or primary school kids. So that's I think what we need to be aware. And also there's something called mood swings. Obviously teenagers go through mood swings. We have to understand that. As adults sometimes maybe even we go through it, so we have to kind of relate to they're all actually perfect in their own way, but of course there are some days they've had long days and they may have some bad experiences in school, whatever, so we have to be just sensitive towards that. Obviously the world of social media definitely plays a big role in a lot of these emotional things, and also we do have a bit of restraint over that. I think kids nowadays are too exposed, and the mood swings actually kind of is also related to how much of screen time, and so I think we try to delay. We delay, or manage their, limit their usage on devices, and that actually has helped, especially when they are early, I think high school years, the first year and two. So just a little bit of managing that, and I think they try to understand. As they grow older, I think they accept, they appreciate. So these are a few things which I think it's a challenge every parent goes through.
I'm laughing at being repetitive because I'm pretty sure it was yesterday. I said to Walter, I was like, buddy, I don't know how many times I need to tell you, but if you know how many times I need to tell you, can you let me know? Because I'm going to say that many times just to get it over and done with.
You got a long way to go.
Yes.
And I also think on social media, even though, like Lawrence said, we delayed it or we try to delay it, but I think you'll come to a point where you can't delay it anymore. But then more actually educating them about choices and consequences of some of the things that you do on social media, and what are the consequences to that. And you got to live by that consequence, because it's like if you know that you're not supposed to do certain things on social media and you're doing it, and then what are the consequences relating to that. So I think getting them to actually own up to and live that through, I think that's an important thing for them to understand and get at the back of their head, kind of thing.
Yeah. I was wondering if it's all right if we get Lash and Levy to share a little bit. There's some bits that they've got prepared as they are teenagers. And so we've got a couple slides here that they might want to speak to. We've even got a really cute photo of you guys. How old do you think you were in the top photo?
I actually have no idea, but like 3 and 6, according to my mom.
Oh, lovely. Well, we've been really fortunate that the girls have taken some time to actually write up a list of issues that teenagers face, and sort of coming at it from the perspective of the teenagers. And so, yeah, you don't have to speak to the whole list if you don't want to. You can just pick the ones that you really want to talk about the most. But yeah, did you want to share some of your thoughts around any of these issues that you guys have come up with?
Yeah, so the most obvious and the biggest probably issue that we face is exam pressure. We put pressure on ourselves, we have pressure from teachers, friends, and expectations that we have to live by. And trying to get through that is pretty hard.
Yeah.
But with like the help of our parents being supportive, it's actually like having a balanced lifestyle as well, just going out, seeing friends, playing sport. It's all just like gonna help you focus more. Toxic friends. This is like a friendship where you're in, but you may not realize that it's toxic at the time. It may not be like them telling you to do drugs or get drunk, but it might be like small things like they're a distraction to you in class, or they make you feel uncomfortable with the way you look. These types of friends that are people who parents should be aware about that their kids may be facing at school, and they're the people who parents should educate their friends to just stay away from.
Yep. And so in one of the previous slides that Shamilla had made up, one of the things that she said was for parents to get to know the friends of your children. So you would say that it's a really good idea for your parents to actually know who your friends are, who your circle of friends are?
Yeah, so my parents know everyone, well, most of the people I'm friends with, and every time I go to someone else's house, they have to know the parent, and they have to at least like make an effort to talk to them at the start or at the end of the event, so that they just know the type of people we're hanging around.
Yeah. And is that embarrassing or helpful?
I mean, I don't really get a choice because they just do it anyways, but yeah, it's alright.
No, that's good.
Because I'm used to it, yeah.
Yeah.
So the third thing is probably like one of the biggest issues, which is body image issues. We may not express this issue to our parents very often, but it's really serious because not being comfortable in the way you look or pressure from society can really like lead to like loneliness, isolation, and even end up becoming depressed or having anxiety. And so this issue should be something that all parents should be aware about, because their kids might not like express the way they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
Because it's not something, that we talk about very often.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And I touched on parent pressure already. Oh, yeah.
So a question for you guys. Is this something that is easy as a child to bring up to your parents, or would it be better if the parents did the initiating of these conversations? Because I know sometimes it's awkward to talk about and it's hard to talk about, but if your parents are the ones that are bringing it up, is that easier for you, or would you find it easier for you to bring it up of your own self?
I mean, I guess it goes both ways. Like if the child is more like of a social person and they're used to sharing everything with their parents, then I guess it's better for them to go to their parents. But like people like me, I don't really share everything that's on my mind with people. So I think it's really important for our parents to be able to notice like if there's any signs that we're feeling down or like there's something off about us, and to like check in on us, even if it's like nothing, just to check in on us anyway, because there could be like a big issue like the ones listed there that we could be going through, but no one knows that. So I think that's
Yeah. Thank you. That's really good to hear. And I think that leads really well into the next section that you guys had helped create it as well, which was, things that parents should do to help their kids. Did you want to, you don't have to talk through all of them, but just the ones that interest you the most?
So the first thing is having a good relationship with them. There's like a lot of ways you could define this, but I know in many families, when a kid walks in, the first question a parent asks is, "How was your day?" And the child says, "Good." And then they're like, "What did you do?"
End of conversation. Yep. Yeah.
So, having like relating to them and like asking them specific questions like how was your test, or what did you achieve at school, is like maybe having like a better atmosphere so that they can answer more descriptively. And the second thing was spending time with them. So like not just asking them how their day was, but actually doing things that they like going for walks, playing sport, watching movies, and maybe just like studying with them sometimes can actually help them just like create a friendship and a bond between parent and child.
Yeah. I'm interested in the next point, which like where it says check in on them, but not too regularly, or else it becomes annoying. Could you share a bit about what that looks like?
This is a point that I actually told my mom to include in this PowerPoint because I think it's important. So as I said before, like I don't really like sharing things with people, which kind of means I'm not a very social person, I guess. So I like it when my parents like come and check in on how I'm doing and stuff. But when they constantly like come into my room and interrupt me with what I'm doing, I tend to like get angry at them or like give them like short answers or be rude. And I'm not trying to do it. I just don't like socializing that much. So I think it's important to know like when it's over the top and when it starts to get repetitive and annoying. So, yeah, so have a balance like between making sure they're okay, but like not doing too much.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you. I might skip ahead a couple slides because you guys have made a really good list of things that worked really well for you. And obviously this is your experience and it might be different for different people, but you've made a really cool list of what worked for you and what didn't work. But we'll just do the what worked ones. If you wanted to just pick one or two out of this list, and then there's another page after this.
I think the most important one on this slide is actually the last one, so never being abusive or hurt us physically or mentally. So when we think of like an abusive household, we kind of think of like the typical like if the parents are like alcoholics and then they treat us like in a bad way. So that's more like the physically side. But the mentally is also really important. Like the parents might not be like they might not actually notice, but some of like this isn't about my parents, but some of the comments some of the comments they make might like actually, even though it might be like just a joke, it might actually have a big impact on how the child sees themselves or make them feel insecure about something that they weren't originally insecure about. So like these little comments, like, and this can be done by like anyone, like friends, family, and anyone. They can actually like hurt us a lot and change the way we act or behave around certain people. So I think it's really good that like my parents have never been like hurt me or my family physically or mentally. So that's like one of the reasons why our house is pretty cohesive, I guess.
Yeah. And maybe Lash, if you wanted to chat from something off this page.
Just leading on to Liviana, about did you change slides?
Oh, that's right. I can go back. Ready? There we go.
When someone like hurts you, you don't actually learn from your mistakes. You feel like you just want to hate them, and maybe find alternative ways of punishment, like maybe taking away your device or like taking some money from you, so you can actually learn from your mistakes and not actually get physically beaten off about it. Is important. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's really cool. And yeah. I also want to point out something in this slide, which says, keep me satisfied, i.e. buy me stuff. Is that one that you guys put in, or is that one that your parents put in?
Oh, I think I sent it. Well, when my mom first asked me what worked and to make me like satisfied, I was like, the first thing that popped into my mind was buying me stuff. And I guess that's like everything, like giving you gifts and things. You just feel like you're appreciated and you're loved because of gifts, and that may be just my love language, like receiving gifts. But yeah, that was what worked.
I I probably have the same thing from my wife. I just say, just buy me shoes, buy me clothes, and I'll be just so happy.
Yeah. Um, Helping with homework, that's actually a really big one because now that I'm going into BCE, like for my first SAC, I had no idea how to study or do anything. And my mom went through all the content with me and sat down for like hours and hours and we just studied together. And that really helped me pass my first SAC, and I did really well in that. And the following SACs, I knew exactly what to do and how to do it, which
Yeah,
was good.
that's brilliant.
Yeah. So we're gonna go into what didn't work.
Ooh, yes.
So yeah.
I'll pop them up on the screen. Let me see. What didn't work?
This one might just be me personally, but I definitely like having my personal space. Like I like being alone. That doesn't mean I'm trying to be antisocial or like being ignored by everyone, but I just like having my privacy at times, and that is very connected to hugs. My love language is not hugs. I don't like physical contact with people. Like even my friends at school, my closest friends who I've known for like years, I barely hug them, and that also goes with my family. So I think it's important that the parents know that if your child doesn't like hugging or likes their personal space, then I think you have to respect that and not try and force it upon them. So,
Yeah, that's really good.
Another thing that didn't work was when both of us first went into high school, everything was just about social media. It was, what are you doing on social media? How are you going to communicate? And my parents, for the first 2 years, they didn't let me have social media at all. And we were both disappointed and both ended up going behind our parents' backs and downloading it anyways. And so maybe instead of just saying no straight away, you can give it to them when they're asking for something, and just setting the boundaries like from day one. Like, this is how much time you have on the device, and this is what you can and can't do. So that's like something that happened in our family, and it's probably going to happen in many families to do with social media.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I must say, I really enjoy that story about you guys secretly downloading social media. I think it's quite funny, and I appreciate it a whole lot. But I also definitely do understand your parents' hesitation in letting you guys jump on board, because it's a scary world out there at times. Lawrence, Shamilla, like where is a lot of the inspiration for your not initiatives, but like the direction that you want to go? Like, are you reading books? Are you seeing other families and taking things that you really like? Are you reading scripture and just coming up with them off, like you just trial and error? Like, where does, I guess, your direction come from with a lot of this?
I think personally for me is like, I've never attended any parenting course, never read any parenting books. And so that's where we're coming from. But I think a lot of journal writing with God. So I do a lot of writing to God and crying out to Him. And then as I do that, I just know like He just speaks to me for the next step, And I think that's really helped me get clarity in terms of what we want to do, the emotions we are dealing with, handling teenagers, because we never knew we both our families, we are first to have kids, so we don't even have that luxury of landing from. So I would say the inspiration is actually wanting, crying out to God, to be honest, and just writing all the things that's happening in our lives. And then as we journey and we do this, it then becomes clearer and clearer to take our next step. And I think Lawrence, on the other hand, he's very like, he's a very he likes to do a lot of things, but sometimes because of work, he's unable to do that. So he comes out with the ideas and say, hey, we should look into this, or he'll tell me to prompt it. I think we need to think about this. And then, so he gives me those prompts, and then I take that prompts and make it reality. So in that way, we work as a tag team, and I think that's really been good. And sometimes actually just talking to the children and just saying that it's not working. And I remember last holidays we went back for like 7 weeks, and the kids were on devices for like the entire day. Like, and like Lawrence was like, this can't happen. And like he said, 1 whole week, no device. And that was like hard and initially. But then the kids were like staring into the room, the ceiling, the space. And then they started doing other things like painting, singing, running. So I realized it's like a lot of like talking to them, chatting, talking to each other.
One more thing I think important is also, I think the support you have, like your life group members, I think they also play quite an important role educating us, especially because we moved, so we didn't have like immediate family to support us. Godly families which actually help to give us the inspiration. And then a lot of programs we have in life groups also, like about growing kids God's way, and programs like that we ran, when we we walked through all these programs together with a few families that helped us as well to learn and build on how to bring it up. And when I look back now, I think that overall it's never going to be perfect. There's never going to be like a perfect situation, but I think with all these little efforts we make throughout our lives, conscious efforts and intentional, I think the children would tend to follow us and grow to be responsible kids.
That's cool. Another question, very important question I had, was the girls' names start with L, and the boys' names start with S. If you had 2 more girls instead of 2 more boys, would they have also started with L?
Don't make us think too hard.
I'm just wondering how many L names you had like stored up ready to go, just in case.
Not really.
We never planned. We just went with the flow.
I just said, all right, you take the S names. I've had enough L's, the 3 L's.
I had a plan of having 3 kids. He had a plan of having 2 kids, and then I inspired to have 4 kids, and we ended up 4. So that's the story.
Good. Well, this is sort of my closing moment. So please, by any means, if you have some questions, this is the time to ask. But some of the things that I've taken down that really jumped out at me. I wrote down a lot of things, but I'll just go through the ones that I wanted to share at the moment. Was setting goals is really important as parents and also as a family, like actually knowing what you want to be, what type of family. I get the way you guys phrased it was like, what type of family do we want to be? I think that is something that sounds like it's really important. That phrasing of structure, not restriction, I think is also probably a really difficult thing for parents to do, but also a really important thing for parents to do. And it sounds like you guys have done that in like a whole range of things, like with their responsibilities and jobs and finances and their relationships and stuff like that. It sounds like it's a hard but good thing that you guys have done with that. Another one was obviously just being an example. And you, Shamilla, you've shared a couple stories of like, you guys are saying to your kids, do this, do this, do this. And they're like, well, no, you don't do it. And you're like, I need to be exempling the things that I'm requesting of my children, which is really cool. The supporting their interests and passions, which I think the girls shared, which is really cool. Because I guess as parents, we probably have a bit of an idea of where we just assume our children are going to go in terms of not even just their hobbies, but in terms of like their skill set and their passions and what their life is going to look like. And it sounds like you guys have like the humility and also maybe the courage to allow your children to step in the direction that they want. And then you guys are willing to get behind them and support them as they do that, which is really cool. And then also finding common interests. I think that's a really, really cool thing to have. And then letting them know and face consequences. And I've heard Shamilla talk about this one a lot at work, which is, sometimes you just got to kick them out of the nest, and sometimes they're going to fly and other times they're not. And sometimes you just got to let it happen, because I think experience is a really good teacher. And so, that's also another really hard thing to do as parents, because you don't want to see your kids fail. but letting them actually know and face consequences of their actions. And then probably lastly is remember your drink bottles. I've seen both Lash and Levy have their drink bottles with them. I'm assuming Lawrence's is just off camera as well. But yes, take your drink bottles. Remember, use your drink bottles, drink lots of water, stay healthy. Those were some of the takeaways that I took from this. And I'm without a doubt sure lots of other people have as well. But yeah. So did you want to say something, Shamilla?
No, I think one slide that we didn't touch, which was that among all the things that really like is key is like I said, last but not least was actually where you actually went, because you just pray.
Yeah.
I think that was the slide that really speaks to us, because a lot of times we don't know the answers and we just go, God, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't solve it. You show me our next step. And that's all we pray, like show me our next step.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, because sometimes you don't know. And we just have to go and submit to him. And I think that's something that we do very regularly, because sometimes behavior change is so hard, attitude change is so hard, not only from the kids, from outside too, like just the whole mindset change. So I think that's something that only God can change that inside, because we always get conformed to the pressures of the world. So yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. All right, gang. Well, it's 9:15. And unfortunately, there's no Survivor to watch, but that's all right. I'm sure the new seasons will be up and running soon, thanks COVID. But yeah, also, one of my friends works for the Australian Survivor, so if the Lawrences want to know some behind the scenes info on how things work and what happens and whether they get fed and all this sort of stuff, let me know, because I know what happens when the cameras aren't on. It's quite interesting. But yes, that's another thing. But yeah, I do want to say a massive, massive thank you to the parents and the kids for partaking in this. It's really cool to be able to hear the teenagers' perspective of things. I think, yeah, the fact that you are able to reinforce so much of the stuff that your parents have said, it was really, really cool. And also the fact that you felt comfortable being able to share the things that didn't work for you as teenagers is really cool, because honestly, most of us have never had kids before we had kids, so we just don't know. And so it's really cool that we can hear from you and learn from you, and you guys are wise young women, and we're really excited to have you in our community. And yeah, Lawrence and Shamilla, we're really thankful for the presence that you have, the contribution that you have, the example that you guys are as a husband and wife, a woman and a man, and parents as well. It's really, really appreciated. We love all that you do around here, and it's been great for us to be a part of. And yeah, massive thank you for the preparation gone into this, and also just, yeah, for taking the time and effort to share with us. We appreciate it a whole lot. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure.